Hi and welcome to Just Cooking Awesome. Today we're going to be doing a Prosecco cake. Special request of a friend for a birthday. So it's a nice cake, it's a good celebration cake. Everybody likes Prosecco. So what we're going to do is we're going to do an all-in-one cake for this. It works really well if you are using baking margarine and you have a handheld mixer. If you were to be using butter, the traditional creaming method works better. What we've done is we have weighed our eggs. The reason that we weigh our eggs is eggs come in a variety of different sizes, and this way it guarantees you've got the perfect proportions for your cake. Whatever your eggs weigh, that is how much butter you're going to use, how much sugar you're going to use, and how much self-raising flour you're going to use. Today, our 9 eggs weighed 510 grams. So we have got 510 grams of baking margarine, 510 grams of golden caster sugar. I prefer golden caster sugar, I think the taste is nicer. And we have got 510 grams of self-raising flour. The reason that we're using 9 eggs specifically is we are using 3 8-inch tins. And I find you get a nice depth with a 3 egg mix for an 8-inch tin. We've also got some vanilla bean paste there. I prefer the vanilla bean paste over the extracts and essences. It's got a much nicer flavour. We're going to start off by cracking our eggs individually into a separate bowl before we put them into the big bowl. The reason that we're doing this is that way if we get any bits of broken shell, we can fish them straight out far more easily. Really handy tip here. If you do get a little bit of eggshell into your egg, and if you use the shell to catch it out, it's much easier than chasing it around with your fingers or a spoon. So now it's time to add the rest of the ingredients in there. We're going to sift the flour in, but the rest of the ingredients can just go straight in. And a nice big dollop of vanilla bean paste. So we're going to mix this until there are no lumps of butter in it, but it is only just combined, because we don't want to overwork the flour and make it chewy. Sure. Yeah. So what we're doing now is we're going to weigh this mix into the 3 tins just to give us an even amount of cake mix. It's going to be roughly 700 grams, I'd say, in each tin. But there's always some slight deviation for bits of mix that miss the bowl and what have you. So if we put in roughly 700 in each, then go back and start refilling anything that's left over. Right, so I'm just picking the top of these. They're red hot, straight out of the oven. It's really important to do this when it's hot so that they don't end up going soggy. So just breaking that crust on the cake. I've opened a bottle of Prosecco. And I'm just going to gently pour this over the hot cake. Like I say, if you don't do this when it's hot, your cake will go soggy. This will get this Prosecco nicely infused in there. I'm probably going to use about 1/4 of the bottle over these cakes. Put my thumb over so I don't end up. Right. So these are the cakes that we baked yesterday, soaked in the Prosecco overnight. Here I have got some homemade Prosecco concentrate. So what we've done now is got the rest of the bottle, so it's 3/4 of a bottle roughly, and I've boiled it till it's down to this. So it won't make my buttercream too runny, adding all that extra in there. So cake number 1. Two and 3. 2 and 3. So what we need to do now is just trim the very tops off these to make them flat. So I've got a cake levelling knife here. It's a handy piece of kit. Makes your cakes level. I'm just going to adjust it to the right height. Perfect. And I'm just going to take the very top of these off. And it doesn't matter if there's a little bit of a curvature on one side because I'm going to fill that with the buttercream. Just reserving these cake trimmings because I'm going to make some cake truffles to top the cake with. The cakes feel gorgeous, lovely and moist. Okay. So there's the trimmings off my 3 cakes. I'm going to set so I'm going to pop one of the cakes onto this cake board here, just centralise it, ready to receive its jam and buttercream. Right. So I'm going to make the buttercream now. So for my buttercream, I've got a 500 gram block of salted butter that is at room temperature. It's important to have your butter at room temperature. Try and do this. Prefer salted butter and buttercream. If you're using unsalted butter, do add a pinch of salt as well. It helps take the sickliness and the edge off it. And I'm just going to whip that butter. I'm going to whip that butter just to soften it and whip it. It's very warm in here, so I may have to pop it back into the fridge for a moment, or the freezer. Just whipping this until it's nice and pale. See, it's already gone a shade lighter. there's my whipped butter. Also going to add in, while I'm whipping it, I might as well start getting the colour worked through. So this is a gel colour. I much prefer the gel colours over liquid colours. Far greater intensity. I'm taking a cocktail stick, quite a big one here. Now when you use these colours, more effective to wipe the colour onto the beater blade rather than trying to drop it straight in the mix. This way it colours instantly. You see that little bit of tiny colour? So I am going to sift my icing sugar in. The better icing sugars usually have an anti-caking agent that is the maize starch one. It's less grainy. I don't think this one has. I think this one is a different anti-caking agent. You may have noticed that occasionally your icing sugar is more grainy, or your butter icing is more grainy. It's usually to do with the anti-caking agents that they add in there. I'm going to add this, just add this in a bit at a time until I get the right consistency. And usually I would do this in a tabletop mixer to stop the sugar cloud. If you pop a damp towel over the top of your tabletop mixer, it stops the sugar from going everywhere, like mine just has done today. Okay, let's pop some more sugar in there. Now, it's a warm day, so today the buttercream may take a little more icing sugar than usual. So a good idea to remember that when it's cold in the winter, you're probably not going to need as much icing sugar to get a nice consistency from your buttercream. When you've got a nice hot sunny day, your buttercream is definitely going to be more liquid. So you're going to need that little bit of extra icing sugar just to thicken it up. But as a rule, I go with 50-50, half butter to half icing sugar. Also depends on the fat content of your butter as well. This butter is an 82% fat content. If I go with something that's more of a margarine or a spreadable butter, it's got a higher water content, a lower fat content. It's going to take loads more icing sugar to thicken it up as well. Right, that's getting to a nice consistency now actually. But I'm going to loosen it up now when I add in my cooled Prosecco syrup. Okay. It's amazing that that was once 3/4 of a bottle of Prosecco. I just popped on the hob until it was syrup. Isn't that a good combination? I'm just going to go around the edge with my palette knife now, and I'm feeling that with my palette knife and I can feel it's actually really liquid still. So I'm going to have to put in quite a bit more icing sugar today. The consistency of that buttercream, that would be lovely on cupcakes like it is. Nice piping consistency. For holding a cake together, I want something a little bit firmer. Okay, so this is going to have a drip cake effect, so we're going to make the ganache for the drips. You do ganache in lots of different consistencies. This particular consistency is what I'm going to be using for the drip. So on here I've got a 300ml pot of double cream, and I'm going to use about half of it. So we've got roughly 150 to 200 mils. This is a 200 gram bar of white chocolate. I've chosen this one because it's got little strawberry crisps in it. Gives it a really nice flavour and looks really pretty with the kind of cake that I'm doing. I'm just going to drop these squares straight in. Start my pan on low because it's really important not to boil this because you'll ruin your ganache. You won't have a lovely shine on it and it won't behave well at all. Okay. So that's 200 mils, 200 grams, and in here I've got another 100 grams, so 200 mils and 300 grams. And this will be my white chocolate ganache. So, as soon as I've broken them all in, I'm going to start stirring it. I've got this on a really, really low heat. Like I've said, I've got it on the lowest setting, which for this is number 1. So there's my cream and my chocolate. I'm just going to keep stirring this now until it's all melted, but I'm not bringing it to the boil or ruin. Now this is nearly all melted, so I'm going to take this off the heat in a minute just to finish in its own warmth for that last bit. Okay, I'm just going to turn the heat off because this is what I've got now, just so that you can see. Okay, so it can just melt in its own warmth now. Okay, so there's my finished ganache, and this is now ready to put to the side and cool. Once it's cooled a little, I'll be using this for piping my drips onto my drip cake. So my 3 cakes are ready to go. I'm just going to start off with some strawberry jam on one. Makes life a lot easier when you've got one of these turntables for spreading. Get this right to the edges. I would like to put inches of this in, but I find if I put too much in, it slips and slides everywhere and you just end up with a messy cake. Okay. And then on the layer, I'm going to invert the next layer. So I'm just going to pop some thin layer of buttercream onto that one. Pop that one onto the top. Okay, and then a layer of jam. Again. And a layer of buttercream onto the next one, which again I'm inverting, and then that way I have got my 2 flattest sides facing to the top. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, move the jam out of the way, get this buttercream and start treating it like I am filling the gaps on a wall. And I'm just going to fill the gaps, any gaps on the side with the buttercream, making sure that my cakes are nicely aligned while I'm doing it. So this is my first layer, so this is just really a skim of icing that's filling in, pushing it into those gaps there, putting in any gaps. I'm not quite in the right place. Okay, going all the way around. I'm not so worried about doing the top on this one. I will put a little skim over there, but it's not, this is more about making sure that my sides are completely filled, completely straight, completely even, and ready to go. Right, a little skim over the top. I'm also checking that I've got my cake central onto my board here as well, because where it is now is where it's going to be for the finished cake. Okay, so that is now my crumb coat. Just about done. I'm going to pop this into the freezer for about 15 minutes now, just to set it off. Right, so this has been sitting in the freezer now for about 20 minutes, just so that the icing can set and it makes the cake a lot easier to work with. So now I'm going to give it its next coat of icing. So that first coat is its crumb coat. This is the one that makes it look pretty. That first layer of icing has crusted nicely. Right, so now I'm just cleaning my board up. And I'm going to set this back in the freezer for a minute, ready to pipe the ganache on. While this is setting, I'm going to make some cake truffles, ready for decorating the top. Okay, so this is my ganache. It's been sitting on the side till it gets to this kind of consistency. So now it's ready to pipe onto my cake, which I've just fetched out the freezer. It's had another 20 minutes or so in there, just to make that buttercream crust so it's easier to handle the cake. Got a plastic piping bag with no nozzle. Plastic piping bag, no nozzle. Popping that ganache into the piping bag. Now I'm off camera. I'm just spinning this in, might be a second. Piping bag of ganache there. Just going to cut the tip off. Now I'm just going to come have this dripping down the sides of the cake a little bit, as it is a drip cake. add some more onto there afterwards if I need to. Pause. One bag.
2, 1.
Just empty the piping bag, so I'm just going to pop a little bit more of that ganache on the top.
Done.
So now I'm going to return this to the freezer again just for a few minutes so it can set. So that leftover white chocolate, I'm just dipping some strawberries in just to add the finishing touch to the cake as well. Just having these in the freezer in a minute just to help it set because it's such a warm day today.